Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Speak Crime to Me. My name is Elena. So on today's episode, I'm going to recap day 5 of the Murdaugh trial. As I mentioned yesterday, things are starting to get interesting, so let's dive in. We started the morning with defense cross-examining the SLED detective Croft yesterday, as we ended the day yesterday. So a couple of key takeaways that the defense was able to establish and get out of Croft. And they started talking about where the shots were fired, from what direction. They're basically just asking where, can you say what direction the shots were fired based on the shell casing? We couldn't really tell exactly where they were going with this because we cannot see the graphic exhibits that are presented to the jury and in court. SLED investigators were only really looking at Alec Murdaugh as the suspect for these murders. And Croft basically said that they start with a small circle and then they go from there in terms of suspects and things like that. Basically, defense is like, why didn't you go to the Almeida house, which is the house that Alec's parents live in, right away? There could have been evidence there, because the SLED investigators did not go until September 2021, which was months later after the murders were committed. Defense also really wanted to establish the point that Alec gave them full access to search the property, the Moselle property. He really was working with investigators and gave consent to whatever they needed when asked. They go back to the audio that we talked about yesterday about how it was alleged that Alec said, "I did him bad," or "I did them bad." So the defense plays the audio again and basically asks Croft, "Are you sure 100% this is what you hear?" And he says yes. Griffin asks Croft if he hears they as well this time. And Croft says, "No, sir, I did not." Again, the defense just really starts pounding. Investigators were only looking at Alec Murdaugh as a suspect at this point. This is interesting. So Croft basically says that he apparently believes that Alec potentially confessed to the murders. But Croft did not ask Alec to clarify this statement or even write it down. Then they go back again to look at the gun room in the Murdaugh's house, get Croft to admit that there's ammo and unfired shotgun shells all over the house in Moselle. Murdaugh spent a lot of money on guns and ammo and things like that. We know that's not cheap. Perhaps maybe that's where he was going bankrupt and spending all his money on buying all these fancy guns and things like that. This is the 11th witness that takes the stand for the prosecution. It's a Verizon guy, and this got very technical and very strange quickly. Basically, he starts to talk about call log. This guy, like I said, he's basically explaining various bits of telecommunications, technology, including network extenders. I have no idea about any phone technology. Meantime, so it was all very too technical and all over my head. Oh, I think I told you guys in the first recap that the state was really gonna they basically said that cellular data and things that they found on cell phones is going to be a big part of this case. So that's why this Verizon guy was obviously on the stand. Even though it was very technical, I think that they had to lay the groundwork for what was to come in regards to cell phone data and things like that. So the next witness of the day is, and they're going through witnesses quite fast today, is the 12th witness, and he is from the Charleston County Sheriff's Department, and he works in the U.S. Secret Service. I had no idea that each police department or police departments have Secret Service working with them. So, data downloads from Alec Murdaugh's cell phones and redact potential attorney-client privilege data. We know that Alec Murdaugh is a lawyer, so obviously this had to be taken pretty serious. And he also testifies about trying to unlock Paul Murdaugh's cell phone. It was a very quick prosecution. The defense comes in, cross-examines him, and basically asking if Paul's phone was was it dead when they received it, and basically the witness says that he can't recall, but it was powered down and he charged it. And then that's it for this 12th witness. So the 13th witness from the state, this starts to get very interesting, guys. John Van Houten, hopefully I'm saying that right, a U.S. Secret Service agent and former Columbia Police Department investigator. He's a digital forensic examiner. He testifies that he successfully broke into Paul Murdaugh's cell phone in March 2022. He had a software program that SLED did not have at the time. He basically says that he used a program called Celebrate. It allowed him to break into Paul's phone a maximum of around 140 times a day with a 4-digit phone code. That could take 10,000 attempts and some 68 days. So might be why we're getting late information from Paul's phone, aka that video that apparently just came out. Testified that he returned Paul's phone a couple of days later to SLED investigate. Basically, so he also says that investigators tend to put cell phones that are taken into evidence on airplane mode, power them down, put them in protective bags, or remove their SIM cards in order to prevent someone from wiping them remotely via iCloud if you have the login data. Determined that Paul's phone had not been wiped when investigators broke into it, saying that it took the Secret Service 3 days to unlock Paul Murdaugh's phone after they received it. Successful with some type of variation of Paul's date of birth, which they say humans are creatures of habit, and many times this is what a passcode is on a phone or other devices. State calls its 14th witness. This gentleman, his name is John Bedingfield. He has a side business and he builds guns. He is also related to Alec Murdaugh, excuse me. Their grandmas are sisters, so cousins they are. He testifies that in late 2016, he was building these 2 guns that we've talked about that Alec Murdaugh wanted to purchase for Buster and Paul, so they could shoot hogs at the property. He says that one of the guns was black, the other one was tan, and they had thermal scopes. In South Carolina, they have a law that you can only hunt hogs at nighttime, so this is why the thermoscopes were needed. He testifies that Alec Murdaugh pays $9,188 for the first 2 300 blackout rifles. And then once that one got lost, he paid $875 for the replacement, and that was cheaper because it didn't have a thermal scope or a suppressor. This might be a win for the defense. The defense just basically gets him to say that he's known, obviously, Alec Murdaugh for years, their family, that Alec has spent over $10,000 on guns for his kids, and that Alec has great relationship with his sons, and it's always been great. And then we're on to the 15th witness, which is SLED's Brett Dove. He works in SLED's computer crimes unit, and this is the testimony of the day. Basically, Dove is considered an expert witness in this field. So he starts going through the contents of Maggie's phone, basically the apps that are on her phone, including apps that track her location. He testifies about a screenshot that he took about 5 missed calls from Alec on Maggie's phone. All right, so let's go through some dates and times. So Dove basically shows call logs from Maggie's phone showing that her last phone call was at 7:50 p.m. on the night of the murders on June 7th. She called someone named Barbara. That call lasted 2 minutes and 46 seconds. Then the call logs show that Alec Murdaugh calls Maggie 3 times in the span of 3 minutes, around the time he left Moselle that evening to his mom's house. Those times were 9:04 and 23 seconds, 9:06 and 14 seconds, and 9:06 and 51 seconds. Then he called her twice more, apparently on his way back from his parents, at 9:45 and 32 seconds, and 10:03 at 58 seconds, and she didn't answer. And just important thing to remember, in the opening statements, the prosecution basically did say it was up to the jury to decide if Alec Murdaugh was trying to create an alibi by calling Maggie after she was murdered and things like that. Now they go into a report showing Maggie's texts on the day of the murders on June 7th. The prosecutors take notes that this report shows whether Maggie read the message or not. So here we go. Maggie got a text from John Marvin Murdaugh to her and other relatives at 8:31 p.m. that evening. She read it 16 seconds later. She read another text from that same family group at 8:49 p.m. But she never read a text from Rogan Gibson that we talked about yesterday that was sent at 9:34 p.m. So she read a text at almost about 8:49, almost halfway to 8:50. And 8:49-ish is the time that they were basically, I think, saying that the murders could have happened or was about to happen. So now they're reviewing findings from Maggie's phone data, including that her phone was unplugged from power at 8:17 p.m. that evening. At 8:49 p.m., she got a text from the family group chat and opened her phone to read it. All right, so this is going to be very important, so let me just clarify again. Her phone was plugged in at 8:17 p.m. into power. At 8:49 p.m., this family group chat, she got a text and she opened her phone to read this text. Data shows that Maggie's phone orientation changed from portrait to landscape in the minutes after Maggie's phone locked for the rest of the night. It locked at 8:49 p.m. And this gentleman, Dove, testifies that only a couple of things could cause the change of orientation to the phone. So he testifies that based on the changing of the phone's orientation and the 1-second activation of the phone's camera, it appears someone who wasn't Maggie picked up the phone, the camera activated and scanned their face, but didn't unlock the phone. Then, at 8:54 p.m., the phone changed orientation and its camera activated again. Let me repeat this. The phone changed orientation and its camera activated at 8:54 p.m., 5 minutes after the device locked. Maggie's phone wasn't unlocked again until after 1 p.m. the next day. Is following me here? This is getting interesting, and the prosecution's definitely building something here. And it continues. Then this gentleman testifies that Maggie's phone orientation changed again to portrait at 9:06 p.m., indicating that someone held it up in their hand, according to this witness. 2 seconds later, the phone gets an incoming call from Alec Murdaugh. Prosecution is basically establishing a 2-second distance between when someone holds up Maggie's phone and when Alec calls it, seemingly to imply that Alec killed Maggie, grabbed her phone, and began holding it up with one hand while he called it with the other. Is this guy smart or is he really dumb? Then we know Maggie gets a couple more text messages after that. The one from Rogan Gibson asking to have Paul call him, and one from Alec Murdaugh at 9:47 p.m. saying, "Call me, babe." She never read either. Her phone wasn't used again until the next day when the investigators found it. Stay with me, y'all. Maggie's phone recorded 38 steps on the night of the murders at 8:17 p.m., 43 steps at 8:30 p.m., and 59 steps at 8:53 p.m. The last 59 steps were after the phone had been locked for good. Around the time that the phone tried to scan a face but didn't unlock. Then there were no more steps until it was found the next day. That's where we ended things here today. So tomorrow is going to be a very interesting day in court, day 6. Some comments that I read that I'll share with you guys based on some of this information. So basically, the state is trying to say at the very minute Alec Murdaugh cranked his vehicle up to leave Moselle, someone picks up Maggie's phone, causing it to change to portrait orientation, and 2 seconds later, Alec calls Maggie's phone. Oh, he did say, I think I said this yesterday in my recap, that he did not know Paul or Maggie's passcode to unlock their phone, and someone said he did have that passcode, so that wouldn't have necessarily happened with the orientation. I think that's wrong, though. I do think that Alec has said at one point he did not. I think at the interview in the car he said he did not have Maggie's passcode. Still don't really know how Maggie and Paul got to the kennels. We need to know, I think it started to be touched on, but we haven't figured out exactly. Did she drive an ATV or a vehicle, or someone saying, did Alex move them after the murders? I don't think that's true. Someone was also saying, I wonder if they can match the count of steps to the flat footprints. That's probably not going to happen because we know that those footprints were kind of messed with and stepped all over. A good point up about, does that mean that 59 steps was Maggie running from him, or was this Alex taking her phone and walking off with it? My guess is that is Alec taking the phone and walking off with it, but hopefully tomorrow we might get some more information. We still need to understand how this data aligns directly with Alec's phone. I'm sure that this investigator is going to go into more detail about Paul's phone, Maggie's phone, and Alec's phone. So that is it, friends. Thank you again for joining me here on Speak Crime to Me. We'll be back tomorrow to recap what happened in this trial. Like I said yesterday, things are getting good, so stay tuned, and until next time.